Hi. Unfortunately, Mrs. Korr could not make it to today's filming, so it's just me. Which is also why I'm not standing in front of the vehicle. And the vehicle, as you can probably tell by the, well, tasteful branding all over the sides, is the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro. Specifically, the facelift Chery Tiggo 8 Pro. You might remember that the last Chery vehicle I covered on the channel was a couple of years ago with the Chery FX or the Omoda 5. The Tiggo 8 Pro is the largest model in Chery's lineup, at least in Macedonia. It's a 3-row large SUV. I realize that for the Americans this might be mid-size. Here's the dimensions on the screen for you right now. But the Americans might call this mid-size, but in fact for Europe this is huge. So anyway, the Tiggo 8 Pro was recently facelifted for 2025 and it has a whole bunch of new changes. And I'm going to go through them with you now, even though I've never driven the old one. Usually at this point in the video I get into what name this model is known under in other markets like China and everywhere else the Chery vehicles are sold. I'm not going to do that because this car is known under 10 different names across 10 different countries. And it gets confusing. And in Italy, for example, it's not even sold as a Chery, it's sold as a DR Automobiles. I'll point you to a resource that you can read about that in the description. Anyway, I'm getting on a bit here. Let's start by talking about the Tiggo 8 Pro's design. By the way, Tiggo 8 Pro is kind of a silly name. Let's start at the front end where there are a bunch of interesting and meaningful changes. So there are the new headlights, which they look similar to the old one, but they are a little bit different, and they hide the smallest sequential turn signals I've ever seen. And there you go, there's a little dance when you unlock the doors. The Chery badge in the middle of the grille also lights up. And speaking of the grille, that's also new. It's covered in those little diamonds, which look like the Sims diamonds, you know, the ones that are above the Sims heads. Yeah, just they're not green. Those strips down in the corners, they are fog lights and cornering lights, depending on what you're doing. And behind them are actual functional brake cooling ducts, which is nice. There's also like a gunmetal panel around the grille, which looks interesting. I didn't notice it before. It's a bit difficult to see on this gray car. By the way, yes, this color is called Phantom Gray, and it's one of a few colors offered on the Tiggo 8 Pro, including one called, for reasons I do not understand, NASDAQ Silver. You know, NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange. I don't know what the deal is with that, but this one is Phantom Gray. It's one of those non-metallic primer gray sorts of colors. I think it looks nice on this one, even though I'm tired of such colors in cars. This one looks nice. Next is the side profile, which is pretty similar to the outgoing Tiggo 8 Pro, with the exception of the wheels. As well as now being 19 inches in diameter, they also have aero covers on them, which also work with the air channels that I showed you in the front grille to make it a little bit more aerodynamic. And this being a big SUV, it needs all the help it can get when it comes to aerodynamics. And let me tell you, they work in its favor for a lot of things. We'll get onto that later. You can also see the brave choice of chrome body molding right across the sides there. And actually, there's a whole lot of chrome trim around the greenhouse and that little fender decoration. I don't know. I wouldn't have it with chrome accents. I am almost certain that Chery is working on a black edition that blacks out all those trim pieces. And maybe they'll do a body-colored version as well. But for now, they are chrome. And if you have a silver car, I suppose that will mask them. But this one, with the Phantom Gray, they are more noticeable. And that's not even getting into the blue and the red and the dark green. You get the idea. Other than those things, the side profile of the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro is pretty much the same as it was before. And this is where you can see that this is a big family SUV, approximately the same size as the Toyota Highlander, which it also competes with, but not in Europe because they discontinued the Highlander in Europe. And finally, the rear end. This filming location is unusually quiet today, maybe because it's 8:46 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Anyway, the rear end. Again, more meaningful changes. You probably noticed the most obvious one is the big rear light bar, which the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro used to not have. It looks nice. It does a little dance as well when you unlock the doors. I'll show you. There you go. Light bar dance, a classic thing in modern cars. You can also see Chery spelled out across the tailgate, as is ever so popular these days. Tiggo 8 Pro badge, that little silver piece of body cladding on the rear diffuser, SUV-ish kind of thing. And 4, count them, 4 exhaust pipes. 1 for each cylinder, as people like to joke. I mean, I guess it looks cool, and all 4 of them are real, you can see, but I don't know, seems a bit unnecessary. I think 2 would have been just fine. The Chinese finally realized that nobody wants their crappy tires, although that's a little bit unfair to the Tiggo 8 Pro because the old model, I believe, came on Hankook tires, but Chery is one of those Chinese automakers that keeps putting crappy GT or GT or however you want to call them, or Atlas or Linglong, something or other, tires on their cars that nobody likes. They learned their lesson because the facelift Tiggo 8 Pro comes standard with Continental premium contacts. Thank you. Very nice. Anyway, what do I think of the... Crap, I forgot to mention the... something that looks to be a superhero logo, but is in fact the third brake light. I hadn't noticed it before. That's pretty cool. So what do I think of the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro's design? Honestly, I think it looks nice. It's pretty brave and bold, I'll be honest, but it's not too crazy at the same time. It's definitely not trying to do something insane, which is fine because it's a big 7-seat SUV. It doesn't really need to do such things, even though a lot of 3-row 7-seat SUVs do such things nowadays. This one offers a restrained sort of look, and I think that works in its favor. And I also think the facelift looks a lot better than the old Tiggo 8 Pro. Not that there was anything wrong with the way the old Tiggo 8 Pro looked. It was just a bit, I don't know, je ne sais quoi. They had a je ne sais quoi. I bet you missed my French pronunciations from the taxi video. To summarize, the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro, the facelift looks very nice. It's a pretty good-looking SUV. It's handsome. Yes, finally found the word I was looking for. It's handsome. Now that we've wrapped up the design, let's get on to practicality. First, the key fob. You have to give me a second because I have to polish it. You'll see why in a second. I think we need a jump cut here. There's the key fob. I had to polish it because, as you can see, it's another one of those glossy, shiny affairs for no reason that I can think of. It looks nice, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't need to be shiny. And also, nowhere to put a keyring. Strange. Anyway, 4 buttons: unlock, trunk release, lock, and remote start. I'm not going to press the remote start because I have bad experience with such things. So let's go ahead and unlock the doors. There you go, sequential turn signals in the back as well, which is interesting. Usually it's either one or the others on a lot of cars. But anyway, hold down the tailgate release. Thank you. And now we can escort ourselves to the cargo area. So here's the cargo area. In its current form, it has 739 liters of space, or this many cubic feet, which is impressive. But the important thing about this cargo area that I'm sure you're getting ready to see is the third row of seats. Excuse me. So I could do this one-handed and just turn the video into a complete unwatchable mess, but no, I've mounted the camera here. I have no idea if you can see me or not, but I'm just gonna demonstrate this properly. You just pull on these little straps. They also have Velcro on the bottom to attach back to the seat when they're folded. And the other one here, bam, third row. They are not reclined quite the same. Okay, never mind. Anyway, this is what the cargo area looks like with the third row in place. That's 193 liters of space, which is not a lot. My equipment bags and that little paper baggie, they barely fit in here. So I don't really know. I think that Chery is well aware that this third row of seats will be for occasional use only, because they're very small and they rob you of almost all of your cargo space. And no, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I will not be demonstrating me sitting in the third row. I tried doing that before I started filming, and no, it was hideously uncomfortable. And again, these seats are for occasional use only. So I'm just going to treat this vehicle as a large 5-seater SUV, and I think we can all agree on that. So let me put the seats back down again. There are these levers on the top, I should say, right here. You pull up on those, and the seats fold down, creating once again, your massive cargo area here. In here you have a 12-volt outlet, rear climate vents, which I'm told the old Tiggo 8 Pro did not have, which is confusing. I don't know why. Cup holders there for each seat, and your vent controls for this rear climate vent. I don't know why only that one gets a controller. Usually both of them should have one, I think. There's also some dome lighting here. I just noticed that, and that's pretty cool. And that's it for the cargo area and the Tiggo 8 Pro / the third row seats. Once you're done, you push your button, and that's about it, really. What about space in the back seats? Something that the Tiggo 8 Pro should indeed excel at. Let's find out. And would you believe it excels? I am 5'11.5" or 1.8 meters tall. I'm not going to repeat that Discord moderator joke again. I think it's been done to death already. But anyway, this seat is in my driving position, and there's also a seat pocket. Always makes me happy. And my favorite thing about being in the rear seat is this. You can mess with the passenger seat from this control panel. And I know why they did this. I think it's to allow the backseat passengers extra room, just in case there's somebody in the third row, because you need to slide the middle row forwards to maximize room in the third row. But is it really a good idea to have this here if there's going to be kids in the back? Because all they're going to be doing the whole time is just this. I don't know. Anyway, some climate vents and a USB-A and USB-C port, and this hideous cursive writing on the trim in gold, which says Tiggo. Looks like something you'd see on a, I don't know, a flyer in a hotel lobby or something. Small storage area there, and the middle seat should be pretty roomy, in theory, because the floor is completely flat. I'm gonna move the seat in about the same position here. That's convenient for filming YouTube videos then. And yes, middle seat is absolutely fine, and I still have good amounts of headroom, even though this car has the panoramic sunroof, which I'll show you in a moment. So, yes, second row of seats in the Tiggo 8 Pro is excellent, and it also slides and it reclines as well through this handle that you can't see. This one does the same thing as well. And by the way, you have to fold this seat out of the way to get into the third row. That's the only one that does that. Also, soft leathery material here on the top. This very intricate speaker, door handle, silvery window switch, and what appears to be unlacquered wood trim. Some storage, and your Sony branded speaker. More on that later. The Chery Tiggo 8 Pro, of course, has keyless entry and locking, so by tapping this little indentation on the door handle, you lock the car and the mirrors fold in, and then when you want to get in, you just grab on the door handle, there you go, and you're ready to go. There's also proximity locking, so I'm going to step away from the car, and eventually it will, there you go, it locks. And if I walk up to the car again, it says hi, basically, like I do at the beginning of these videos. Interior. This particular one has the black leather interior. There's also a lovely dark brown. One of the cars at the dealership, inside the dealership, had that combination with the dark green exterior. It was lovely. Anyway, these are the seats, very soft and plush and leathery and things like that. And you have these adjustable headrest pillows straight off an old S-Class. I think that that is a freaking genius idea. And they have, wow, man, I need to slow down. They also have these lovely patterns here, the diamond quilting and stuff, and the Tiggo scripture here on the seat back. And there's a lot of new stuff about the interior as well that's different than the old Tiggo 8 Pro, and you have illuminated door sill decorations. Some more of that wood trim and that intricate speaker, which is quite sharp, by the way. These silvery switches remind me of something you'd see on a Mercedes from like 2012, which is a good thing. And, well, that's about all I can show from the outside. Let's get in. And now we are inside the Tiggo 8 Pro. Speaking of Mercedes, first thing that greets you in the new Tiggo 8 Pro is this new steering wheel that is heavily inspired by the one in the Chery FX, the smallest model currently in the lineup, at least here. What it doesn't share with the Chery FX is the size, because this thing is absolutely massive for reasons that I do not fully understand. I got used to it eventually, but it's really big. I don't know how to explain it without you being here and me demonstrating it to you. Also, what is this? Half the steering wheel is covered in piano black. It was the same on the Chery FX, and I do not understand the reasoning, because you hold the steering wheel often here, and it gets covered in fingerprints all the time. Anyway, the top half is leather, and indeed, these outer edges here are also leather. They can't be edges, you idiot. It's a circle. So, yes, half of the steering wheel is piano black, but the top is leather, and these bits here on the side are also leather. You get some grip extensions there, the Chery logo, or indeed the word mark spelled out across the steering wheel. Over here, you have cruise control and various other things, and the star button. Over here, you have your media controls. That's for the gauge cluster screen there, I'll show you, and the voice commands. And the previous next track buttons have a green and a red dot indicating answer call and end call. And you'll be pleased to hear that none of these buttons are touch sensitive. They are actual buttons. They're just on a glossy panel. And in the middle, we have the horn, which sounds like this. This particular Tiggo 8 Pro is equipped with a 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, and currently that's the only transmission you can have in Macedonia. They also stole the shifter from the Chery FX. It was a slightly different one before this, but now it's this exact one that was in the Chery FX. And it works like a lot of these electronic gear selectors do. All the way down to drive, halfway up or down for neutral, and all the way up for reverse. Brings up your 360-degree cameras. Standard stuff. You got your 3D views and your different round view, different things. Like, you didn't see any of that, did you? You got all your standard stuff here for the cameras. You got your 3D view as well, front and curb views and different things like that. And then you push this P for park. You also might have noticed the plus and minus. Yes, there is a manual mode. There's no paddle shifters, but you can use this thing to shift. But it doesn't move to the side. What you do is you press this button on the side and then put it to drive, and it'll light up the plus and minus. And now you're in manual mode. You can shift up and down. I don't understand. It's a little confusing, because then you have to press the button again to switch back into drive, and when you are in manual mode, there's no like single stop. It can go all the way down or all the way up. So I'm not really sure how that's supposed to work, but you do have, thank you, you do have the option. Something I don't see very much in modern cars that I review is a lot of center console controls. So let's go through them quickly. You got your parking brake, you got your auto hold, you got your hazards, your AVM. Again, this car also abbreviates the 360-degree cameras as AVM, except now I finally know what that means. It means around view monitor. It still means audiovisual masterpiece, but okay. A shortcut to vehicle settings that then doesn't let you quit. The volume control and power for the stereo system, and indeed the infotainment system as a whole. And your drive mode selector. There are 3.
Normal mode, sport mode, normal mode, eco mode.
And the car was very kind to say them out loud for us. Infotainment system. This screen is 12.3 inches in diameter, standard size for modern cars. Actually, it's a kind of small by 2025 standards, but that's a good thing. This one's 12.3 inches, and so is the gauge cluster screen. But let's go through this quickly. This is your media. This is the home screen, obviously. This is your media. This is your vehicle settings and Bluetooth devices if you have them. That's home, obviously. That's your app drawer, standard stuff. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto built in. All of these things that you're probably familiar with. Your vehicle settings are there. You can change various different options like safety systems and convenience features and driver assistance and this and that. You can change the color of the ambient lighting, and you can also adjust the outside mirrors through the infotainment system, which I don't know why, because you have actual controls on the door. Strange. You got your oh, I accidentally turned the climate controls on. We'll get to that. Send me home. You got your screen settings here. This is the local settings. You can adjust various things there. You have that. All right, FM presets and stuff. And your Bluetooth phone. Not connected right now because I use Apple CarPlay through a cable. Although you can use it wirelessly, I should say. And that's it. Pretty standard stuff. Even though the car officially supports Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it doesn't really like calling them that on the home screen, because if you do have Apple CarPlay connected or Android Auto, it comes up here as third-party audio source, like it's shaming you for using those. Now, one wonderful thing about the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro is that it has physical AC controls here on the panel. This is such a relief and a nice thing to see after all the screens I've had to deal with. That's your temperature. You can slide it back and forth, obviously, to adjust that. You have front defrost, rear defrost, power, rear for the third row and the second row, air conditioning, recirc air, automatic mode, and fan speed, which you can swipe, and you can also tap. But you can't tap the temperature. You can only... Oh, never mind. You could actually tap the temperature. I just wasn't doing it properly yesterday. So another new thing about the Tiggo 8 Pro is this new UI on the gauge cluster, which is far better than both the old one and that crap with the 3 different themes on the Chery FX. This is way better. I love the look of these dials. That's obviously your tachometer. That's your speedometer. You got some warning lights, the gear, the time, the temperature, the digital speed, your fuel gauge and range, the mode you're in, it's displayed there, doors open. Your media is displayed there, that's your temperature, coolant temperature of course, and the overall odometer. To access trip data, you push the Pages button here. You get trip A and trip B, and tire pressures as well. One thing I find a little confusing is that you don't get complete control over both the trip datas. Trip A, as it says so clearly here, after the start. Trip A resets every time you restart the car. Only Trip B is the only one you can reset. By the way, that fuel economy figure is a little bit false. We'll get onto that. But I don't know. I feel as though both trip odometers should be fully controlled by the user and not the car. But okay. And also, some warning lights are displayed inside of the speedometer. That's the parking brake. Auto hold and start stop are also displayed here. And traffic sign recognition. By the way, none of this is the most interesting feature about the gauge cluster. That would be this. You get some touch controls to do with the screen. So this is obviously screen brightness. You can turn that up or down. But these are even more interesting. If you turn up these volumes, they have nothing to do with the stereo volume. They are the volume of the warning chimes and the turn signals. Allow me to demonstrate. I'm going to turn the volume all the way down. I'm going to put the turn signal on. You can probably barely hear it. Now I'm going to turn the volume all the way up. And now listen to the turn signal. This is a really bizarre feature. When I picked up this car a couple days ago, the volume here was almost maxed out, and I was like, why is it so loud? And then I discovered that these volume controls control that, and I keep it as quiet as possible because that turn signal sound is kind of annoying. This thing here is the sensor that monitors if you're paying attention or not, and then warns you accordingly. You can probably see the infrared LEDs in there through the camera, which is interesting. I've always found that fun because you can see them in real life. Here's the turn signal stock. Looks really nice. It feels nice in the hand, but also looks very nice and embellished. These little dials here control the headlight functionalities and the fog lights, and obviously pulling it and pushing it is for the high beams. Wiper stock on the other side, same sort of thing. There are no other stocks here, by the way. All of the cruise controls, as you saw, are here. Down here you have the tailgate release, hill descent control, and a blank switch. No idea what that does. What looks to be a speaker grill, I'm assuming that's got to be the turn signals. Wait. Yes. That speaker outputs the warning chimes and the turn signal stuff. Interesting. I didn't know that would be so exposed. By the way, forgot to give this car brownie points for having separate dials to open and close the climate vents. But only these in the middle. These other ones are the less fortunate move it in one direction variety, which is a shame. Door panel with these flowy lines and all this soft touch stuff. Door handle, some little ridging here. And I already showed you this stuff. The mirror controls are here. These buttons obviously are for which ones you want to adjust. That's power folding, that's power locks, and that's rear window child locks. By the way, Sony stereo, excellent. Here's your rear view mirror. You probably can't tell, but it's an ultra wide angle piece of glass, and it's completely unadjustable. I suppose Chery wants you to have both a view of your children in the back and out the rear window. And out the rear window, honestly, it's fine. It's really small. It looks like I'm looking through a letterbox, but because the rear of the car is upright, it's actually pretty visible. Here's all your dome light functionalities. These are for the left side. These are for all of them. There's a sunglasses holder, which always makes me happy. This is for the right side, and this is for the doors. And here you have the sunroof controls. Oh, and there's an SOS button here. Sunroof controls, that's the sunshade. Even if you push the switch all the way back, it still stops in the middle. You have to push it again to open it all the way. And of course, the sunroof controls themselves. And in terms of interior features and content in the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro, that's really about it. Not a whole lot else to say, really, so let's move on to quality and storage. The interior quality is really freaking impressive. Almost the entirety of the dash is covered in a stitched soft touch material. You have that wood effect trim that I showed you, which, because it's not lacquered, it makes it feel very premium and nice. You have this padded leathery-like stuff all over the dash. Everything is built solidly and it's all well put together, and there's all these lovely lashings of silver all over the place with these switches. I love the silver switches. They're like my interior highlights. And these speakers as well. All this padded leathery stuff. Basically what I'm saying is the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro has no business feeling this nice for the amount of money that it costs. I don't usually get into pricing that much, but this thing starts at under $40,000 in Macedonia. And considering all of the stuff you're getting, that's pretty good value. And again, going back to what I was saying, everything is built very solidly. It's all well put together. It feels premium and high quality, and Chery vehicles come with a 7-year warranty here, so there is some confidence about their longevity. As for storage, well, you get some standard door pocket storage here with space for a bottle. Nothing over there, sadly. You get a big, I already showed you this thing here with the charger and the cup holders. Big center storage area that I showed you all as well. A very useful little hook, say if you want to hang a little grocery bag here or what have you. And a pretty significantly sized glove box. So overall, the Chery Tiggo 8 Pro's interior is fantastic. Also, I will commend Chery for, aside from this mess, there's not a whole lot of piano black in here. There's some on the dash, as you can see. There's obviously the screen panel. We don't really count that. There's not a whole lot else they can make it out of. But everything else, the only other notable piano black is here. The rest is all pretty matte finish and lovely and all that. So bonus points for that, Chery. I also forgot to demonstrate the climate control menu, so here's that. It has most of the same controls you have here, except you also have your zones there on that side. You also have a sync button for the temperatures, which you do not have here. For the seats, this is the only way to activate heated and ventilated seats if you have those. Good thing it's the summer. And in the settings, you can also mess around with different miscellaneous things like that. And also, there's an additional speaker in the center of the dash. Also, lots of adjustment here in the driver's seat. The next trim level up from this one, the Noble, that one has memory settings for the seats. This one does not. And there's also a good amount of adjustment in the steering wheel. Well, okay, won't let you telescope the steering wheel with one hand, but trust me, there's plenty of adjustment. Finally, the engine. So the engine choices for the Tiggo 8 Pro in Macedonia have changed. There's now only this. It's a 1.6 liter turbo 4-cylinder with direct injection. As you can see, it puts out 147 horsepower and 275 newton meters of torque. And that goes to the front wheels, and for now only the front wheels, through a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. You might be thinking that 147 horsepower is nowhere near enough for this type of vehicle. And in most cases you'd be right, but first of all, this is a modern turbocharged engine and it doesn't really have a lot of problems. It has some pretty good DCT software that we'll get into later, and for most people it's going to be enough power. 0 to 100 kph is around 10.5 seconds. That's perfectly fine. And it also pays dividends when it comes to fuel economy. And we will get into that right now. Let's take the Tiggo 8 out on the road and see what's what. So let's begin as we normally do with town driving. And you know what? The Tiggo 8 Pro has actually really surprised me in this situation. It's a big SUV. You're not really going to use it in town all that much, let's be real. Unless if you live in a big metropolis without commutes like I do. But it was actually pretty good in the city. Obviously, there's a 360-degree camera and parking sensors, so there's no real concern about its big dimensions. Parking wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be, and visibility all around was pretty good as well. And I forgot to mention earlier that the driving position is also pretty excellent, and there's lots of adjustment in it. Like usual, I spend most of my time in town in the Eco Drive mode, and it had some pretty interesting gearbox tuning, like and throttle response tuning as well. No matter how much you push the throttle, it will not shift gears at a higher RPM in Eco mode. It just gets to a lower RPM, like 1800, and then it shifts, no matter what you do. It's a very interesting sort of setup. I haven't really seen that before. But in town, rest assured, the Tiggo 8 Pro does a surprisingly good job, and I'll tell you what else is a surprisingly good job. The fuel economy. Because it's only a 1.6 turbo 4-cylinder, and it has only, quote-unquote, 147 horsepower, but we'll get back to that. You can expect about 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers of driving in the city and on the highway as well. That converts to this many mpgs. So, now that that's out of the way, let's go and hop over to highway driving, which was also very impressive. Due to the car's boxy shape and sort of bluff sides, there was a little bit of wind noise. Although that's to be expected, but there was hardly any road noise at all, and once you get to highway speeds, the engine drops its RPMs, and it's very quiet and comfortable. And I wouldn't exactly call it a fast car per se, but it was surprisingly competent for, again, a 1.6 liter engine with 147 horsepower. It had no problem pulling, and it also had no problem maintaining its speed and even gaining a little bit of speed when you gave it a push. Now there's two potential reasons for this. One of them is that this is, at the end of the day, a modern turbo engine, so it shouldn't really have any issues. It's not the same as putting a 1.6 liter turbo 4 in a big SUV from 10 years ago. But there's also the fact that the Tiggo 8 Pro weighs just 1.6 tons dry. That's about the same, actually less, than my Lexus IS, and my Lexus IS is a compact luxury sedan and not a 7-seater SUV. So, good job Chery on that one. And you know what? Dynamic driving wasn't too bad either. This is not a sports car, and don't treat it as a sports car, but the amount of body roll in corners wasn't as, noticeable as I thought it would be. And the steering is fairly responsive, and again, no issue with picking up speed when you need to give it a little kick down. You have a manual mode in case you need it, but dynamic driving, really not bad at all. The Chery Tiggo 8 Pro was genuinely surprising. The FX that I drove a couple years ago was good, but it needed a little bit more polish. The Tiggo 8 Pro is a lot more of a polished product, and you know what? It's a really good package. It's a really good 3-row family SUV, and that's why it gets a score of 8 out of 10. And thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. If you liked it, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Follow along with the community tab for news on upcoming videos, and be sure to follow me on Blue Sky. There will be a link in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.